You poop. I know you poop. It's something I've been assured that everybody does. So if we all have this operation in common, I believe we deserve to be comfortable while doing so. Now, sure, you can go and equip your home personal bathroom with all the bells and whistles of your choosing, but frankly, it's naive to think that your throne will always be there for you when nature calls. You can't always trust that your fuzzy seat covers or high-powered, imported, possibly illegal bidets will be there for you. Sometimes you must turn to the public restroom. Pooping in public restrooms is rarely an enjoyable experience. In fact, it's a widely displeasurable act. Some restrooms are better than others, but rarely are the circumstances ideal. But surely there is one place that has found a solution to this discomfort. If only there were somewhere with the sole ambition being comfortability and even happiness. Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. With a company that boasts innovation, it could be expected that they found an answer to public restroom comfortability. Yet, in my personal experience, Disneyland restrooms seem to miss the mark by the same margin as most public facilities. You'd think for a theme park that sees an estimated average of 44,000 guests a day, with over 50 restaurants, plus countless snack stands, I mean, they are just relentlessly peddling food to these people, that they'd have figured out decent restrooms. But I will admit that my personal experience is limited and biased. You see, being an Orange County resident, I've taken my fair share of trips to Disneyland, a place I used to believe was safe, somewhere that had my happiness and best interests at heart. That wasn't until one fateful day. I was in the Hollywood Boulevard restroom in California Adventure. All I had to do was pee. But usually I have reservations about using urinals because I feel more secure inside of a stall. But in this instance, all of the stalls were occupied, so I braved the urinals. Now, it took me a while to start. Being in unfamiliar territory, my body wasn't ready to just trust that I was supposed to pee here, out in the open. But during my warm-up procedures, a line began to form for the urinals. And my brain is aware that this is a dire situation, but my nethers were still apprehensive. And then a man in line grew impatient and said, "All right, buddy, that's enough." Now, at this point, I was ready to abandon all hope and exit the restroom incomplete. However, I noticed that the child at the urinal next to mine had received the statement and left the restroom. So I assumed, oh, this man is some sort of parental figure to this child, and he has to take care of his own business. So the man takes the urinal that the child was at. Now, I don't know at what point in his procedures he was in. All I know is that at some point, this man felt the need to shamelessly look over and down straight towards my personal belongings. And my immediate response was to make eye contact with him, just as a way to ask, why? But I was denied the right. So I left the restroom in shock, only to find that the child that this man commandeered the urinal from was walking away from the restrooms with someone else. So this man had no affiliation. He was just so eager that he reprimanded someone else's child, a stranger's child. I still don't have the answers. So, my goal. Right, why am I saying all of these things? Well, I have taken it upon myself to find the answer to the age-old question, which Disneyland bathroom is the best bathroom to poop in? Now, as a warning, I know that my findings are going to upset people. I'm sure that there are people out there who have a preferred restroom or have had wonderful experiences that will contradict my data. I fully expect there to be riots, and I am prepared to face the consequences. So let's talk logistics, right? How am I going to prove one bathroom the best? Well, I have established 5 criteria that I will be rating on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being wonderful or outstanding, and 1 being beyond substandard or bad. These criteria have aligned in a convenient mnemonic way. PONG-T, or Top Gun, as my girlfriend called it. Speaking of my girlfriend, she will be an asset to the research. Seeing as I identify as male, I will not be entering and rating the women's restrooms. That's her job. I've walked her through what each criterion means individually and what to look out for, which I will now do for you as well. P stands for population. When you're pooping, you don't want a crowd around. Personally, whenever I see feet waiting under a stall, I get performance anxiety and I close for business. So the ideal place is not overly crowded, which is difficult to achieve in the sardine can that is the Disney parks. O stands for opportunity. So how many stalls are there? Typically, I expect 2 to 3 stalls in a normal male public restroom, but this is Disney. We're talking high volume. So how well equipped is this restroom? Also, am I gonna have to wait to wash my hands while some kid plays around with the soap dispenser because there's a disproportionate sink to toilet ratio? That'll count against you. N stands for noise. How well are the awkward sounds of your movement gonna fly under the radar? If you're particularly struggling, are people going to notice the amount of force with which you are voiding? Some restrooms are criminally echoey, and if I feel like someone can hear any of my strife, then I feel obligated to apologize, and it makes for a bad experience for everyone. G stands for godliness, which, as I understand it, is next to cleanliness. So that's what we're measuring. How clean are these restrooms? With thousands of entitled guests ravaging their way around the parks, why should they clean up after themselves? Often they don't, and it's left to be done for them by custodial. So, how well is Disney taking care of their reckless patrons? And finally, T stands for theme. Yes, the theme of the restrooms matter in this case because it's Disneyland. Their whole vision is this preserving the magic thing, so I'm holding them to it. I don't want the immersion to break just because I have to go I have to use the restroom. Disneyland should have to meet their own high standards. So with these criteria, we will be grading each restroom in Disneyland 3 times, just to eliminate as many variables to the experience as possible. Now, there are a total of 30 restrooms spread throughout Disneyland and California Adventure. I'm excluding the rest of the Disneyland resorts, such as Downtown Disney and the various hotels. This is just about the parks. Visiting each restroom 3 times means that we will visit a restroom at least 90 times on the day of research. I'm doing this for you. I will then average each individual score and add them up to officially determine the best restroom in Disneyland to poop in. Here I go. Actually, there are a few other things I have to go over before my field day. First of all, I want to address this before it gets out of hand. I may use some incorrect terminology when talking about the parks. For instance, I am calling Disneyland and California Adventure Disneyland because technically they're both part of the Disneyland Resort. You don't have to call me out on this. I understand this, and I hate you. Next, I had to do a bit of pre-research. I had to plan a route so that I could efficiently visit each restroom multiple times. So, I went to the parks and I grabbed some maps. So then I went online to the Disney Parks website so that I could compare the maps. And this was mostly just so that I knew the names of each of the restrooms. But while I was doing this, I discovered something. There are 3 unmarked restrooms on the printed maps. The first 2 are in Disneyland, at Hungry Bear and Tom Sawyer's Island, Fort Wilderness. The third is in California Adventure. The third is in California Adventure at the Golden Vine Winery. What could be the reason to omit 3 restrooms from the printed maps? The maps that are most easily accessible to guests entering the parks. Could it be to preserve these restrooms for their own selfish reasons? Or is something else sinister going on? I'll tell you now, I won't find out. That's not what I'm here to do. Another thing I did in preparation for the big day was conduct interviews with a few current cast members. Out of respect for them, I will not disclose any of their identities. I asked them a few questions about Disney just to warm them up, but really there was only one thing I was looking for. I'll let you listen.
All right, enough small talk. Do you shit where you eat? Here, let me set the scene for you. You're in the park. You're a guest. Good old-fashioned playtime. You're no doubt wearing some infantile merchandise with bright, obnoxious colors or some poorly themed hat, and you've been eating. You've probably stuffed down a pretzel or two, maybe some ice cream. You've been sliding churros down your throat like a sword swallower every hour on the hour because you can't resist that sweet smell of burnt sugar in a deep fryer that they vent out into the public, drawing you in like a pie in one of their very own cartoons. It's in your bloodstream. They've got you by the balls, and now they've got you by the bowels too. You're starting to sweat. You notice small tremors in your hands and knees. There's a storm coming, and you need to find shelter. You need to poop. Where do you go?
I go to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The bathrooms by the marketplace.
I like going by the Fantasyland Theater, right across from It's a Small World.
But there was one interview that stood above the rest. One answer that I was particularly interested in. Take a listen.
Okay, is this on the record or off the record?
This is totally off the record.
When I'm a guest, I don't have a whole lot of choice, but when I'm there working, I have great options. When I'm there working, and I guess you could even do it as a guest, but Tom Sawyer's Island is the most remote bathroom in the entire park, and it's on an island.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need a spray at the end of that. You can just go in, evacuate your bowels. It's private, it's single stall, it's enormous. You could dance in that room if you needed to, but you don't. You just do your business, wash your hands, walk away. It's part of the old, what used to be the fort on the island. People don't know about them. They're very exclusive.
This is big. The restroom that this experienced cast member sings the praises of is one of the 3 unmarked restrooms on the printed maps. Does this mean that Disney is trying to keep it hidden specifically for cast members? Again, not my job to find out, but I did really like the way this restroom sounded. I mean, single use, room to dance, that sounds like a companion restroom. Which, by the way, I have excluded from my research because I don't think it's morally right for me to use a companion restroom. But this just sounds too good to be true. Now, with all of my pre-research out of the way, I'm ready to find out if it is. It's too good to be true. Kind of. I'll explain. Honestly, the Tom Sawyer's Island Fort Wilderness bathroom is amazing. It's single use, there's a lockable door, there's a lot of room, no one's nearby. Theme is a 3. Opportunity is a 1 because there's only 1 toilet, but population is a 5. Godliness, a 5. Noise, 5. It's a wonderful restroom, and I would use it again. However, it's disqualified, as is the other restroom on Tom Sawyer's Island. The reason for the disqualification is that the whole island shuts down in the middle of the day, usually at 5 p.m., but sometimes earlier. So that means if you have to take a night poop, you're out of luck. Also, you have to wait in line to board a raft over to the island and then do the same thing to get back. It's just a lot of commitment, but it's a great restroom. But that's all okay, because the results are in, and there are some great restrooms in the parks. There are also some pretty low scorers though, and I feel like I need to talk about those. In last place, with a total average score of only 8.25, are the Disneyana restrooms. It's the first restroom on the right when you enter Disneyland, and to get to it, you have to move down a cramped alleyway, only to get inside a tiny, overcrowded, smelly bathroom that has nearly no theme to it. And everyone in there will definitely hear every move you make. This is by far the worst restroom, don't poop here. 2 others are the Plaza Inn and the Red Rose Taverne restrooms, both only getting a score of 10.75. The Plaza Inn restroom is also a pretty confined space, with a lot of people filing to and from Tomorrowland, and There's no real hiding your business in this place. It also seems like custodial can barely get in there to clean it because of how close quarters it is. The Red Rose Tavern restroom seems to have the same problem that Mickey's Toontown restroom does, in that it's a lot of young children and stressed parents moving through and making a mess. Also, New Orleans Square restroom, bad. City Hall restroom, bad. Toy Story Midway Mania restroom, very bad. But it's not all bad. There were a lot of interesting things I saw on the day of my research. I watched a child make whale noises into the mirror in the Disneyland main entrance bathroom. I noticed that the King and Queen restrooms by the Alice in Wonderland ride have really neat stall doors that are playing cards with Wonderland characters on them. I noticed that the Paradise Garden Grill restaurant has a Route 66 theme, even though it's nowhere near Cars Land. And I decided to revisit the Hollywood Boulevard restroom, despite my emotional scarring. I'm very glad I did, because while I was in there, I heard a small voice in another stall asking some big questions. Peter, if you were born in 2009, you would be 10 in 2019. Indisputable. Peter, what if you were born in 2000? Peter, this is a hard question. Peter, what if you were born on the last day of the world? Peter, what if you were born and you were the only person in the world? You'd have to be a doctor, and you'd have to cook and have animals? This really changed my whole view on things. When I heard this, it gave me more clarity than anything had ever before. If you were born on the last day of the world, you'd have no time to experience anything that it has to offer. You'd miss out on everything just because you'd be a dumb little baby. If you were the only person in the world, you'd have to create everything for yourself. You'd have no companionship, no one else's creativity to admire. If you wanted to experience something like Disneyland, you'd have to work at it alone. If you were born in 2009, you would be 10 in 2019. It all made sense.
You do get sucked into the whole idea of creating fun, creating happiness and magic, and it's part of, a bigger dream, part of Walt's dream.
Hearing this cast member speak so fondly of the park, I was initially off-put. But now I understand. Disneyland doesn't have to represent any isolated displeasures you have with it. Whether it be an awkward restroom experience or an aversion to crowds, what it really is at its core is amazing. People dedicated to entertaining and bringing magic to the world for complete strangers every day. Somewhere you can go to forget about all the crap in the world. A place that strives to be the happiest place on earth. And now finally, the top 3 places to poop in the Disneyland parks. Coming in 3rd place, as a shock to a lot of people, with a score of 19.25, are the Space Mountain bathrooms. These are located at the exit of the Space Mountain ride. They have a fun, futuristic theme, lots of stalls to choose from, and are generally pretty clean. They can be somewhat difficult to find, and you do have to maneuver your way through crowds of people that are exiting the ride, but the crowds tend not to swarm the restrooms too severely. And the atmosphere is filled with noisy, excited guests to cover up any sounds you might be making. Great place to poop. In 2nd place, with a total of 19.75, only 0.25 away from number 1, are the Black Spire Marketplace bathrooms. These are located in the market area of Star Wars Land, and they are amazingly themed restrooms. They're all made to look dirty though, so who knows what's real grime and what's decor, but there's plenty of sound, lots of alien ambience to cover up your business. In fact, there's actually a massive bubbling chamber right outside the restrooms, and whenever someone uses the water fountain, it erupts in noise, and you have a few seconds to really go at it. Several stalls to choose from, a big open area, but it does have a bizarre trough sink, and troughs are just one of the world's most repulsive inventions. But everyone at the sink gets their own soap dispenser and hand dryer, so it's pretty well equipped. The crowd is often something to be wary of, however, seeing as Batu is often poppin'. But if you go here, your poopin' will also be poppin'. And finally, the best bathroom in Disneyland to poop in is the California Adventure main entrance bathroom. Especially in the afternoon, most people are already in the parks. So if duty calls, all you have to do is exit and walk over to the guest service area, and there you'll find these hidden gems. They're not exactly obscured, they just seem to be more private and unused. Each visit greeted us with nearly no other occupants, pristine restroom conditions, tons of stall options, and a nice bit of music to take care of any noise you might have. The only thing this restroom struggled with was theme. However, being that it was outside of the parks, it didn't belong to a land. So, the upbeat Disney music and the elegant tile were enough to keep the theme at an average of 3, totaling the restroom at 20 points even. So, if you ever feel the need, I highly recommend you take advantage. Separate yourself from the hustle and bustle inside and retreat to this private paradise where you can unwind and discharge. Now, like I said, I know that not everyone is going to agree with me on this. However, I've done the research and I stand by my findings. But if you have a personal favorite restroom, by all means keep using it. And feel free to use my criteria to rate the restrooms that you visit frequently. I encourage you to find your own comfort. You deserve it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go poop.